Hey everybody, it's GSG Cast and I'm Nick, and today I'm going to do a tutorial for Cinema 4D, and I'm pretty pumped. It's a nice day, I got my iced coffee, and let's do this. Alright, so open up Cinema 4D, and the one thing you need over the standard package, what I'm going to use is MoGraph, the MoGraph module, and also I'm probably going to use a little bit of the advanced renderer. So make sure you have those modules. If not, there's workarounds, but that's what I'm going to use. So I think I have the SXP or whatever version. Anyway, let's see here. Here we go. So here, we're in Cinema 4D. Now your window may look a little different from mine. And really there's a ton of different ways to kind of organize things. I got this layout from Tim Clapham from hypa.tv, I think is his site. You can go there. I'll put a link in to get this layout. But anyway, here we go. So we open a new window, and the first thing we're going to do is add a sphere. And I'm going to do that by clicking on this cube up here, and selecting a sphere. Now you can see I'm in this top view here. I'm going to switch to my perspective view, like this. All right, now we got our sphere here. And what we're going to do is make it a part of a MoGraph cloner object. So go to MoGraph, cloner object, select the sphere, and make it a child of the cloner object by dragging it on top of the cloner object. And you can see now that we have our three spheres here. It automatically makes 3 clones. Now a quick little keyboard thing here. To move around the interface as far as in the window here, you're going to use the 1, 2, and 3 keys up at the top of the keyboard. The 2 key, if you hold 2 and drag, you're going to zoom in and out. If you hold 1 and drag, you're going to move left and right. If you hold 3 and drag, you're going to rotate around the object. So again, this isn't quite a beginner tutorial, but if you're just kind of trying to follow along, that's how you do it. All right, so now we have our cloner object, we have our sphere, and the cloner object we're actually going to set to grid array. Over here, it's already set to linear by default. We're going to set it to grid, and you can see it made a 3 by 3 by 3 grid of spheres. And now what we want to do is just kind of scale the sphere down to so they're not touching. So I'm going to select the sphere and click on the scale icon up here. So this is move, scale, and rotate, kind of similar to the 1, 2, and 3 that we have on our keyboard, but these are for objects. So I'm going to scale the object, make sure the sphere is selected, and now you can just drag down and see we could scale those spheres down. So now we could rotate around, see we got this little grid of spheres. Looking cool, right? Okay, I'm going to center it up. Next thing we're going to do is add a sky object. Now, we're not going to light this with traditional lights. We're going to light it with an HDRI map. And let's see, we're going to do that by selecting, where is she? This light icon here will have the sky object inside of the menu. And this is the sky object. You click it, it says sky. Now we have to apply the HDRI texture to the sky. And to do that, we're going to, in materials, we're going to say file, new material, or you can just double click to make a new one. And then we're going to open that material by double clicking. We're going to shut off its color information, and we're going to turn on its luminance information, and we're going to load the HDRI map right here. This little 3 dot thing right here is where you select the HDRI. In this case, it's a .exr, which my friend Chad made from work. He has a program called HDRI Studio Pro or something like that. It's for PC only, but he made this nice little kind of softbox HDRI that we're lucky enough he's going to share this with everybody. So it's a sky, if you look real close here, it's a sky light with 2 softboxes and a couple little dots for reflection. We'll see it a little more once we pull it in. So go ahead and open that. It says, this image is not in document in the document search path. Do you want to create a copy at the document location? Now what this means is it tries to collect all of the materials next to your project. If you want to keep it where it is, just say no, and it'll stay where it is, and it'll just load. Instead of, if you click yes on that button, it would load a copy to where you save your Cinema 4D documents. Okay, so now we have the the HDRI and our luminance material. And the next thing we have to do is just apply that to our sky object. So we're just going to drag right from here onto the sky object, drag and drop, and we're going to close the material editor. Now when we spin around, you can see we actually have in the unit, in the window here, our sky light and our two softboxes and our little dots here. And now these are going to not only light but also reflect onto these spheres. So now we have to make a texture for the spheres so that they can be lit and reflect our sky here. So just here's how you do a quick render, just so you can see where we are right now. This first little what do they call those things? Little clapper thing. If you click on that, you're going to see what we have. Right now we have a default light with the default texture. It's not looking too pretty. So let's make that look pretty. So I'm going to make a new material by double-clicking in the materials box here. I'm going to open that material. And in this one, we're going to select like a nice blue color. And you have the RGB sliders. You could slide around, and oh, that's orange. That's my default. I'm going to pick a nice blue, kind of lightish blue color. And the other thing we need to do is turn on reflections. Now, if we keep reflections on 100% here, and we apply it to the cloner object, and we hit the render here, you can see it's going to reflect kind of too crazy, right? And normal materials not only don't reflect this much, they don't reflect in this way. And what I mean by that is sometimes certain materials reflect differently based on what the angle is. And what can fake this behavior is a Fresnel channel here. So in the reflection tab, make sure you're selected there. In your texture tab, you're going to select Fresnel, and it's Fresnel. And when you click that, you can see we get a little bit more natural fall off. And what this does is it says things that are aimed directly at the camera will not be reflected, and objects that fall off away from the camera angle and kind of go off to the sides will be reflected more. Now this is an extreme case, but in this case it works pretty well. And now if we hit render again, you can see our reflections are a little bit more natural. What we do have on though is this default light. If you see it right here, you got these little specular highlights. And this is a kind of a tricky thing that gets me sometimes. If you don't have a light in your layer manager here, if you don't add a light like up here, then this auto default light will always be on. And it'll kind of get confusing, especially when you're lighting with a HDRI map. The way to shut that off is in your render settings, and I'm going to go to my render settings and select, in your render settings, you're going to go to options and shut off this auto light. It's a little checkbox right there. So once you're out of your render settings, go back to view, and we're going to render again. And now you can see a couple things happen. We lost our color, and that's because technically these aren't being lit by anything. So, well, the good news is we got rid of our auto light, right? So that's not going to play around and mess with us anymore. But we lost all the color out of our object, so the blue is not being lit. And that's because with no light in the scene, these objects aren't being illuminated. Now the reflections are working, which is kind of throwing us off a little bit, I think. You can see as we spin around, all these reflections are showing up, but we just don't have color. So to add the color, we need to turn on global illumination. Now, global illumination can get pretty tricky when there's floors and walls and really tight corners to kind of fill in gaps, you know. But when you're lighting something with no floor, no walls, kind of an object from around, you can kind of get away with some pretty loose settings. So I'm going to show you global illumination, just the basics. If you just turn it on by default and we go back, you're going to see we have our blue back. You also could see that there's like a two-step render process. And let me do that again. The first render, we'll go through and look at where the light should be kind of thrown, right? And then the second render comes through and lights the object in the final render. So now we're getting close, right? We're looking a little better. So let's rotate around, do a couple couple things. It's as you get on the side where there's a light, since there's a light right here, it's a little brighter here. And if you go to like a darker corner, maybe over here, you can see it's getting a little darker on this side, which is nice. And okay, so we're getting close. Now what next? The first thing we should do is try to randomize these spheres here. It's a little bit too kind of grid, base, and I like a little bit more kind of natural kind of placement for these. So what we're going to do is select the cloner object. I'm going to go back into the MoGraph menu and select Random Effector. Now by default, the Random Effector, let's get rid of this window. By default, over here in the Random Effector has position on random, and it has X, Y, and Z at 50 meters each. And what that means is it's randomizing each of these clones at different amounts. And we can make this larger by kind of sliding these numbers around. And that's what we're doing. So you can kind of place them, play around with these things, see where they go. Now also we could add more clones by going back to the cloner object. And by default, you remember, let me shut off this random effector. By default, we had a 3x3x3 grid, right? If we up this number to, let's say, 3x4x3 or 4x4x4, you can see now we're getting more and more clones. And if I turn the random effector back on, we're going to have more clones to randomize. And therefore more in the scene and, start to look kind of crazy, right? So we're getting close. Now, the other thing I want to randomize is the scale of each of these. Right now, they're all the same size. Let's do a render and just check it out. Right now, they're all the same size, and what I think may look a little bit more interesting is the getting the scale a little different. So we're going to, on the random effector, we're going to turn on scale. And let me just pull this out a little more so we can see what's going on. And in this case, unless we want them to be ovals, like pills and ovals like this, we want to turn on uniform scale. And what that does is just make sure it scales the X, Y, and Z axis all the same. So now we can kind of play around with this randomized scale thing, and we can see that we're starting to get something kind of cool here. I'm going to play around a little bit with the placement again, try to move these away from each other. We don't really want them intersecting necessarily if we can get away with it. Yeah. Something like that, starting to look cool. Let's check it out. Looking good. All right. Next thing. So let's say we don't just want blue spheres. We also want like orange spheres, right? In that case, what we want to do, the best way to do that is instead of putting the texture on the cloner object, we're going to put this texture on the sphere. And then I'm going to copy and paste the sphere again and drag it back into the hierarchy. So now we have a cloner object with two spheres on it. And now all we have to do is change one of these textures to an orange texture. And so since this blue one's pretty close, I'm going to highlight it. I'm going to copy and paste it, make a duplicate. And now when I select it, all I need to do is come up and make this an orange color. Okay? So kind of to taste, it looks good. And now I just want to replace one of these textures up here with this orange texture. And it may not blink right away. If you have a display issue, what you want to do is just kind of turn it off and turn it back on. Turn off and on the cloner object, and you'll get it to kind of reset. So now we have random orange and blue spheres because it's going to pull from both of these when it does its cloners. So now we have orange and blue. Let's render that and see what that looks like. That's looking kind of cool. Now, we're getting a little bit of fringiness. And if you're watching this in high res, you could probably see there's some anti-aliasing issues. And this is pretty common with reflections, especially really bright specular reflections. And also when using HDRI maps, it happens as well. And the way to fix that is to go in your render settings again. And you want to go to anti-aliasing. And right now it's turned on to geometry by default. What we're going to do is crank it up to best. And now usually the default best settings are a little too good. And what I mean by that, there's always if we turn that on, there's always a a trade-off between render time and how good it looks usually. And in this case, sometimes you can get away with a little bit less of a maximum level here. So sometimes I like to set this at 2 first and see how that looks. Now this render isn't too bad, but when you start to add more and more and more objects, you really want to be careful about how many seconds each frame takes, especially when you're talking about animation. Now we're not going to do animation today. We're just going to do a still, but keep in mind, there's always a trade-off between the quality of the settings and how good it looks. So there's always workarounds and tricks, and I'll try to get to some of those too. So anyway, we're back at our scene here. We got our orange and blue spheres here around. Things are looking good. Now let's find a nice angle to render, because we're going to bring this into Photoshop to do the touches. Now, my 3D guru buddy Chad from Drumb.tv, Grumb.tv, Chad Ashley, man, he's the guy that taught me probably pretty much everything I know about 3D and how to handle this stuff. And he always says, if you can get it close in 3D, do the rest in Photoshop, or do the rest in After Effects, or comp the rest in. That really kind of taught me a lot about, instead of sitting here in 3D trying to tweak all these colors and handle all this stuff, get it close and then bring it into After Effects where it's a little quicker and a little easier to see what you're doing, and then finish it up. So that's what we're going to do today. This is looking pretty good. We have a nice little rim light here from this softbox. We have some cool reflections going on, but it's just a little bit dull, and we can come in and brighten the light up. But I think we have enough information here to kind of render it out, bring it into Photoshop, and then see what we could do with it. Okay, so let's do that. We're going to render our first thing here. We're going to go to Render Settings. I'm going to go to Output. And the output is going to be, let's make it widescreen, 1280 by 720 HD, right? And now let's go back and see what happened there. You'll see where it gets cut off. It actually puts these little markers in. I'm not sure if you guys could see that. There we go. It puts these little markers in where it shows you where it'll render. So just to kind of see how the render will look, I'm going to cheat this box up. So now that's our 16:9 image. And now I'm going to move the camera around and kind of get a good placement on our scene for the render. Yeah, getting close here. Let's check that out. That looks pretty cool. Somewhere around here. I'm happy with that. Let's go back to our render settings. And it's going to render the current frame at HD res. And then if we go to save, you're going to have to turn on Save Image. And then under Path, you're going to tell it where to render to. So in this case, I'm going to call this orange and blue spheres. Okay, I'm going to save that. And in this case, we're not going to save any alpha channels or anything. We're just going to render it with the background. And again, I'll get it in more detail later on. But for now, let's just make something cool. Anti-aliasing is set to where we left it. Everything else is looking good, ready to go. Let's go back, double check where we are. Good, looking good. And the last thing we have to do is render to the viewer. Now, for me, it's a Shift-R to render to the viewer here. And there we go. That's it. There's our full res image ready to go into Photoshop. So now let's... now, if you didn't set your save preferences, you could save it from here. But by default, since we told it where to save, it saved in my folder. So I'm going to open up that folder. It's on my desktop under Tutorials. And I'm going to pull this into Photoshop, and we're going to do the rest from there. Now, there's our old one. Sorry about that. There we go. Okay, so here's our image in Photoshop. And what the heck, I'll make it. No, I don't think I can make it full screen. We'll make it around there. I'm going to pull my windows back, and we're just going to do a couple little touch-ups to it, and just to kind of make it a little bit nicer than what it is. The first thing we want to do is brighten it up just a bit. So I'm going to grab my curves, and I'm going to pull up on the highlights here. I want to keep the blacks pretty black, but I just want to brighten up the rest of the scene. That's starting to look better to me. Again, doing this in Photoshop is going to be quicker and look better than tweaking and tweaking and tweaking in 3D. So the next thing we'll do is just apply, reopen the curves and apply just a little bit of that film look I've been playing around with. You know, lifting the blacks a little bit, maybe even pulling the blues down, pulling the greens a little bit. I'm not feeling that one. Maybe somewhere around here. Yeah, that's looking close. Next thing we'll do is do a vignette. So I'm going to add a new layer and grab my gradient with a radial gradient and apply the radial gradient to a multiply mode on top of our scene. And I'm going to turn down the opacity somewhere maybe around 30%. I may want this just a tad brighter now too. Yeah, I'm feeling that. So let's blow that up. There it is. There's our final image from Photoshop. You know, again, a quick intro to Cinema 4D, and I hope it all made sense. I'll link to the HDRI you could download, and also to the Tim's setup. I think it's at his site. Hope it's at his site. Link to that. And if you guys, you know, make one of these, play around, link it in the comments. I'd love to see what you guys pull off. And if you have any questions about Cinema 4D and also After Effects, Photoshop, I'm going to be doing all these here coming up. If you guys have questions, link it up. I'd love to see it, and I can't wait to see what you guys come up with. And we'll have more tutorials soon. All right, thanks, guys. See ya. Bye-bye.